All right, welcome to our next Real Talk Friday. Today, we're going to talk about the challenge middle schoolers have in a post COVID world because this is something I've seen firsthand and it just devastates me to see these poor kids just struggling. They're on the struggle bus like nobody's business. Let's be honest. Middle school's hard, anyways. We've all been there. Middle school's rough, right? That's when you're going through puberty, you're going through all these things and changes. And then you throw COVID in the mix and send all these kids home. And so all these kids now that either were middle school or beyond, or I'm sorry, below, so elementary through middle school during the COVID pandemic when all the shutdowns happened and everything, these kids are really going through a lot. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this, so I was a youth group leader at my church. Had to step away when had the baby and everything, but was doing that, and our group was eighth grade girls, and I loved this group of girls. My group, we had a large group, so there was three of us leaders, and so the group that I had within our group, they were like the troubled youth that I love them though. They were great group, but definitely the ones that just are having a little bit of a rough time. But we were talking about all this stuff because at the time they were in eighth grade, and so they had been in sixth grade when COVID had happened and when all the shutdowns happened. And the complete difference in them at maturity level was mind blowing. They did not act like eighth graders. They acted like fifth or sixth graders because the socialization piece they weren't getting because the schools shut down. They weren't with their friends. They weren't going out and doing stuff with their friends or going to sports or any of those things when COVID happened. And it hit a huge toll on those kids where they are significantly more immature now than they really should be. And I wanted to talk about that today in this real talk because I think this is a big problem and it's only going to get worse because students who got shunned at that point and shut down and closed into their doors and their homes and really didn't have a whole lot of socialization during COVID, they're really struggling now. They're struggling with keeping up socially, they're struggling with their identities, they're struggling with all these factors and mental health as well, which we've talked about before. And I'm like, what do we do about this? What can we do? Because let's be honest, this generation, these kids, they're going to eventually be adults. They're eventually going to be getting jobs and in the workplace or at college or doing whatever. And I'm really worried that they're not ready for it, that they are just not going to be mentally prepared to be able to handle the stress of those things. Because I don't know what happened in your districts, but I've heard from multiple of my clients during that time, even right after COVID, when they opened the schools back up, 2021 and 2022. I don't know how many students I worked with were telling me, like, oh, yeah, like they don't even give me grades anymore. They just want to pass us because it was kind of like, oh, well, we feel bad because you all went through COVID and we're just all a hot mess. We don't know what's going on. So we just need you to get through this class. And so students that I was working with were literally getting grades for assignments they didn't even do because schools were like, hey, you know what? We don't, this is what we have to do. This is the situation. Everything got so lax because of COVID and they were all flexible about turn-in dates and all this stuff. Yet it never went back to how it was. So it's still that whole mentality of kids are like, well, I don't have to do it and I'm still going to get good recognition. What is that doing for our youth when they enter the real world? When they become adults, that is not how it works. Let's be honest. We all know that as adults who've been in the workplace. It is not, oh, well, if I don't show up or if I don't do my thing or if I don't put any effort to this, I'll be fine and I'll still pass and I'll still get my bonus. No, no, doesn't work that way at all whatsoever, right? What happens? You get fired, you get demoted, you get reprimanded, all these things. And we as society are setting our kids up for that by the education system being the way it is. We are setting our kids up to get fired, to get disappointed, to get let down, and to get shut down because we are letting them get away with anything and everything in our society right now. And I understand COVID is hard. It's hard on everybody. Teens, kids, adults, doesn't matter. But the reality is those skills of, hey, guess what? You didn't turn your homework in, so you're going to get a failing grade for this. Hey, guess what? You didn't come to school today, so you're going to get in trouble, or you're going to have this work, or hey, you didn't do this, or you did this wrong. There's a consequence for that. As a parent, hey, guess what? I asked you to do this and you didn't. And so there's a consequence for that. That's reality. It's cause and effect. Yet we have society and families and schools have all been like, well, no, my poor kid. Oh, they've been through so much. I don't want to do that to them. And what we're actually doing by doing that is hurting them way worse than giving them a consequence, than giving them an F on that paper. And it's one thing, and I apologize to any educators listening to this because I love you, what you do, but the education system as a whole is so flawed. And we're going to do another real talk on that. But the one thing I want to highlight in that right now is this whole push to graduation, because schools are measured by the Department of Education on their graduation rates, regardless of if that kid actually should have graduated or not. And I've actually worked with at-risk kids a ton. I've worked in those areas, and I see these schools just bend over backwards doing everything possible to get those kids to graduate. And yes, I agree in helping the student, but the methods they use are not helping the student. They're helping their numbers. They're saying, look at this, we got 95% graduation rates. Cool. Half those kids, you gave them A's in classes or B's in classes to pass them that they didn't even earn. They didn't earn it. So if they don't graduate, that's on them. That teaches them a super valuable life lesson of failure. And guess what? It's okay that I didn't pass that class. And oh crap, if I want to get out of here, I'm going to have to put effort in. I'm going to have to change how I'm doing things. Otherwise, they're going to just keep walking through life expecting everybody to bend over backwards for them, expecting everybody to, well, I didn't do it. I didn't show up. I didn't do the thing. You know how many young adults just quit and just don't show up for work, don't show up for things too? We've been trying to get a house sitter for our baby for months, and nobody returns our calls, or we schedule an appointment and they don't show up, and they're all young adults. And it's because we as society and families have done this. We have created this. So how are we going to fix it? I'll be honest, I don't have an answer for that right now. I have thoughts and opinions, and I think the big one is definitely shifting that, saying going back to giving consequences. I'm not talking about corporal punishment. I'm talking about consequences. Okay, you relate to curfew. Give me your car keys. It's not being mean. It's saying, you know what, here was the expectation, here was the thing that we needed from you to do, and here's the agreement that we had together that you knew you didn't follow up on your end. There's a consequence to that. We need to go back to that in schools. We need to go back to that of detention and saying, you know what, you didn't come to the class, you didn't do the homework, so you're not going to get the passing grade. You've got to do the work. You've got to show up and participate and do the things to get the cookie, And I think that's one area we really, really need to work on. And I think in the homes too, that we as parents can do this as well, because we can't change what's going on in the school system, but we can change what's going on in our house. We can change how our kids, having those conversations with our kids, letting them experience those disappointments and consequences and other things. I think that would be a really good start to getting back on track with that stuff and to really helping our youth, because we want them to succeed, but we're actually setting them up for failure by doing these things. And so I just want to talk about that because that's something that I witnessed firsthand with multiple middle school students across different schools. And it was just heartbreaking to see how immature they were, how they just expected things to be handed to them or done for them with no effort at all. High school students I worked with during that time. And I just think we need to do better as a society. I know I'm trying with Adulting University. My whole purpose is to help prepare kids and teenagers for adulthood, to help young adults be successful in adulthood, but I can't do it alone. And I want to be able to partner with families and partner with these organizations to say, let's start instilling this stuff. Let's start teaching and educating and helping these kids in these spaces and help them boost their confidence, because that's what it's going to do. When you think about the time in your life when you earned something, it was a bonus at work, it was that A on your paper, whatever it was that you worked so hard and you got it. How good did that feel? To be like, wow, I did this. It wasn't handed to me. It wasn't given to me. It wasn't easy. It feels so much better. And our youth is not getting to experience that. And so I think that's what we need to do as societies to really start those things. So Appreciate you listening to our video today for our Real Talk Fridays. Catch you next week.